Thanks for being here today. It's really great to be here. We are just doing the same thing Casey Underground is doing, but just like 5% better. Just like a little bit better. So it's incremental, but it's important. All right, they have been, About 18 months ago, a couple showed up at the church that I lead, Redemption Hill. They'd been pushed out of their church because they had a deep concern for racial justice. It broke my heart to hear their story. We were their last stop on the way out of church. I don't know about where you live, but in my city, people are more likely to be becoming ex-evangelicals or deconstructing their faith than be followers of Jesus. And when you ask people in our city about their religion, 56% are going to say none of the above. That's just where we're at. People are leaving churches in droves. Some are saying that 30% are not going to re-engage after COVID. And I think that we just have to say something is wrong. We've got to call it out. Something's wrong. And this couple who stopped by our congregation, they were looking to find Jesus. They were looking in a religious wasteland, the evangelical movement in transition. They're saying, show me the real stuff. I want Jesus. I think that this is our jump the shark moment as a church. I think we have to think differently about the future. Christendom is effectively dead as a cultural system. And some are scared for the future, but I think that this is a call for optimism. This is a generation that's growing up with no knowledge of Christ, but also no church wounds to heal from. The gospel sounds like really good news when it's not wrapped up in power and money and the control of political elites. My name is Robert Frazier, and I think that now is the time for agile, innovative leadership put back in the hands of everyday people. We believe that the death of cultural Christianity, in it, there's a wild, lush opportunity to see what God has for our generation of truth tellers, gospel bearers, and especially people starved for real transformation found in Christ.
I'm Dusty Benner, and both Robert and I have spent a large amount of our time in larger traditional churches before we planted. We saw that big churches and the traditional setup rarely saw disciples that know how to engage their community and actually make the disciples themselves. And so we wanted to do something different, seeing that need desperate in our society. So we've been kind of groping along, grabbing, learning from other missional pioneers, learning how to embed ourselves as missionaries in our culture, learning to serve our community and neighborhoods, and also train people in the ways of Jesus, and then sending people out as missionaries. But one of the things that I found was that we were lacking something, and the part we were lacking was this idea of movement. We didn't quite have the capacity as individual leaders to do that by ourselves. So we had to think of things and ask a few different questions. Okay, the first question we were realizing, and the first idea that we were realizing is, number one, is we don't like working alone as apostolic leaders. Okay, we wanted a team with different gifts, different abilities that we can learn off of. Okay, number two, movement will require pulling in the same direction. Okay, we needed a critical mass of leaders and specialists to support, resource, and train leaders. Number three, our financial model to make this work needs to be co-vocational leaders working in missional businesses that fund the ministry.
Last June, there was kind of a culmination of conversations and friendships that brought together a network of microchurches in the Boise area to launch what we call the Syndicate. 5 families working together to launch a missional hub that would train and equip people to be missionaries on every street in our city, see a microchurch emerge in every neighborhood so that the gospel takes root in every family across our city of about 800,000. One of the coolest stories we've seen is Trevor. He was an executive pastor at one of the largest churches in our city, and he felt this call to make disciples, and he realized that in his role as an executive pastor at a mega church, he wasn't doing it and he didn't know how to get there. So he said, I'm going to walk away, and he decided to launch what we're calling Jesus People. And he has launched this new microchurch network in a rural town about 40 minutes away from Boise. And he's got 3 families of microchurch leaders that are being trained and equipped to reach the city he's called to. For Trevor, the only possibility for him to make that transition is as a co-vocational leader. So we're working with him to help him launch a small missional business that does marketing and business consulting to support his family as he works to see the gospel come to life in the community that he cares so much about. And just this last year, we've been able to train almost 50 missionaries. We're coaching 7 microchurch startups, and we're launching a vision and calling lab to clarify the gifts and calling of leaders in our community.